The history of the Super Mario series is a bit weird at times, and one period where it was especially strange was in the 1990s. After their hit Super Mario World, Nintendo kind of abandoned the whole 2D side-scroller aspect and went headfirst into the 3D craze. However, after years and years, this series returned in the form of New Super Mario Bros. But how did these new 2D games evolve over time in terms of design, gameplay, story, and use? Well, let's find out.
Dr.Wily.
The first title was released on the DS handheld and is a bit different from the older 2D titles that it was inspired by. It's still a side-scrolling game, but this time it's 2.5D, adding depth to the whole experience, which made it more visually interesting. The game features a solo story mode with Mario or Luigi, a 2-player wireless game Mario vs Luigi, as well as a minigame mode for up to 4 players. The multiplayer games support both single-card and multi-card play, and most of the minigames are the same as those featured in Super Mario 64 DS. So let's first look at those, because these are completely new for this kind of game. In the 2-player mode, Mario and Luigi compete for a number of big stars. They will appear at random in the side-scrolling stages. When Mario or Luigi are hit by an enemy, falls down or hit each other, they lose a star, which can then be again collected by any of the brothers. The first brother to receive the previously set amount of stars wins the game, and when you have a certain amount of victories, you win the match. So it's basically some sort of side-scrolling race, like a normal level, but this time with a lot more pressure behind it. And when it comes to the minigames, there's a wide variety of versus battles and single-player ones, all with different objectives. This is a gigantic improvement compared to any of the older 2D games, which had limited or no multiplayer options at all. However, now with the power of the DS, they could finally link up other consoles with each other to make a good multiplayer experience. This is already one major achievement of this 2D reboot. However, there are more things that this game did well. There were a number of new enemies in the game that certainly improved the levels in multiple ways. However, I want to specifically look at the bosses, because they are especially interesting and amazing. In the older 2D titles, you would mostly fight fake Bowsers or the Koopalings, who were quite basic in most games. However, in this new rebooted title, we got special bosses, which wasn't seen that much in the 2D games. For example, Monty Tank, which is what the name implies and just fires bullet bills at you. Or the Mummy Pokey, who's covered in red spikes along with a bear trap-like jaw from which he spits projectiles. All these bosses are very special and fun in my opinion, and certainly better than any of the previous Koopaling fights. Some can be a bit too easy, like Cheap Skipper, but they're still all unique, challenge you in different ways, and show off new interesting stuff. This is an amazing step in the right direction, and they should certainly keep doing stuff like this. Sadly enough though, they didn't. Another interesting aspect of this game is the new size-changing power-ups that played a big role in this title. The Mega Mushroom, which temporarily makes you enormous, allowing you to walk over and destroy everything in sight, including the largest and most powerful enemies. And the Mini Mushroom, which will shrink you, and this allows you to sneak into smaller areas. So it's basically the polar opposite of the Mega Mushroom, and together, they have a huge role in this game. It's even seen on the box art, and was used a lot in order to promote the title to consumers. This effect of gigantic and tiny is a really fun mechanic in the game, and is used quite a lot. Yet another strong point of this title, because both of them require a completely different playstyle to be used effectively. And yeah, when it comes to the story, it's the same old, same old. The only really interesting bit is that Bowser is revived and becomes a skeletal version of himself. It makes for a cool fight, and it's certainly interesting from a story perspective that he can even do that. This makes me wonder, what else can he do? We know he's skilled in magic, which we can clearly see here. Well, in this instance, his son at least. But he probably learned it from his dad. However, that's kind of where the story aspect ends for new Super Mario Bros. Games in general. Now after this we got a title for the home console Wii. However, here some things changed. Just like with the DS, they used special functions on the Wii and put it into the gameplay like tilt controls. This added a completely new dynamic to the levels, and all of a sudden you did more than just pushing buttons. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this stuff, because motion controls are terrible. But hey, it's creative and adds more diverse gameplay, so that's good. Another thing they added is the option to play with friends in the story mode of the game. However, it doesn't change the game a whole lot. You just play together. However, one thing that they changed that had a really big impact was the bosses, because the koopalings are back. You fight them at each tower and castle. They start off only doing the basic moves that every koopaling can do, but later on they start to use some tricks specific to the one you're fighting. For example, Larry, who makes platforms move up and down in his castle fight, or Lemmy, who will use balls in his battle with you. This does make them more special than they were in the older games like Super Mario Bros. 3, but still, they're a bit bland. Every tower fight is basically the same, just a different koopaling every time. So it would be better to keep the trend of special bosses going. But they didn't, because in future games, those wouldn't return as well, sadly enough. They also added a number of new power-ups, and one of them is truly a new one, and the others are more like spin-offs of existing ones. The propeller mushroom is completely new and does some things that we have never seen in the series before. Its power is to propel up, so when the player shakes the Wii remote in their hand, the character flies vertically up to get to a high place or escape from enemies. It can even blow away thick fog, which can interfere with your view. Overall, a very handy and unique power-up. With it, you can explore the world of Mario in more ways than just going from left to right. It uses the space in the level more efficiently, and thanks to that, there's a lot more to find and see. However, the other two power-ups, the Pingwing Suit and Ice Flower, are just similar to the Fire Flower and Blue Shell seen in other titles. So while they're certainly fun, it doesn't change the gameplay a whole lot, or does something really special. Another interesting thing to see in this title is the focus on the Yoshis. Although that's not really a new thing, since this was already seen in Super Mario World, which this game draws inspiration from. Now after this, the series went on to the next generation of consoles, the Wii U and 3DS. Sadly enough, this is also the point where the series stopped experimenting as much and just stuck to the formula. The next game in line, New Super Mario Bros. 2, just added one new gimmick to it all. The game's main focus is on coins, with the primary goal being to collect 1 million. To reach the goal, the game includes many new items to aid the player, such as the Gold Flower, which turns Mario into Gold Mario, and rewards him with a lot of coins for taking out enemies. Along with that, you will see a lot of golden enemies in this game, items that give you golden coins, basically a ton of gold. The reward for collecting 1 million coins is a new title screen featuring a gold Mario statue, and maxing it out gets you a golden raccoon Mario statue. Not the best rewards in my opinion, but it's something. Aside from that, they added new enemies just like every game. However, there's one special one in my opinion. Behemoth, a gigantic boo who will chase you in one of the ghost houses. And this is most likely a reference to the big boo seen in Super Mario World. The fight is different though, because you need to run away from it, which is a bit lame in my opinion, since you can also slow him down by looking at him, because he's a boo after all. Now when it comes to power-ups, aside from the Golden Flower, they added one other that was ridiculously powerful, but not very special. The White Raccoon, which is basically the normal power-up as we know it, but this time you are invincible. So really, yet again, not that special or new at all. Now for the most recent game in the series that was even ported to the Nintendo Switch, New Super Mario Bros. U. Here they introduced a number of new things that had an impact on the gameplay, but overall it was still the same. One thing they improved a ton in my opinion is the boss fights with the koopalings, and they even added new ones. This time you fight Boom Boom from the third Super Mario Bros. Game at every tower, which can get a bit boring at some point, but luckily enough they throw in some new tricks every now and then. However, where it really shines is the big battles. All the koopalings now have special moves and tactics that all challenge you in different ways and are beyond amazing. Especially the one with Bowser Jr. and Ludwig looks stunning and are a lot of fun to do. It's a gigantic step forward. They also introduced the Sumo Bro, who will jump between the platforms in the room, stomping them to make electric waves below him in order to damage you. Stomping the ground makes it shake for a few seconds, which may stun you. And to take it out, you need to hit the bottom of the platform and then ground pound it. Yet again, adding more bosses is only good because variety is important. Now when it comes to power-ups, they added a new one that isn't really that new. The Super Acorn. It turns you into a squirrel, but works similar to the cape feather and tanuki suit seen in older games. So personally, I wouldn't really call it new. However, they did do some interesting things with the Yoshis. New types with powers, like the blue baby Yoshi that blows bubbles and will turn enemies into 3 coins, a power-up or a 1-up mushroom, magenta baby Yoshi that expands like a balloon and gently floats in the air, and yellow baby Yoshi that lights up the dark areas and can stun enemies with their light attack. Now, all of these might seem new to the franchise, but really, they were already seen in other games like Super Mario Galaxy. So while they are certainly fun, it's nothing new really. What is new though is the in-world minigame called Nabbit, who's a little critter that goes to the toad houses to rob them, and you need to catch him. It's basically a chase scene, and if you catch him, then you will be rewarded, which is an amazing feature in my opinion. It reminds me of the world map events seen in Super Mario Bros. 3, and those were great. And that's kind of where it ends. We got an expansion on this title that was harder and Luigi themed. Of course we got Toadette in a new one, and a cursed power-up that took over the internet. However, I'm not gonna give that any more attention. Now, you might say, Wily, you didn't cover everything, what a bad video! Well, that's because I covered it already in a ton of other videos. So click in the upper right corner to find more videos on specific power-ups, enemies, and more. But for now, this video's over. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos, be sure to click the annotations on the screen right now. And click subscribe. We're at 200k. Thank you. Now let's go to 300. Yay.